Let's take it out of Malaysia, where leaders there say their lockdown order has prevented major daily spikes in COVID-19 infections. The country has the highest number of coronavirus cases in Southeast Asia. And with the extended lockdown set to end in 2 weeks, new restrictions are coming into effect amid growing concerns of imported cases. Starting this Friday, Malaysians returning from abroad will be taken straight to quarantine centers for 14 days of observation. That means they will no longer be allowed to self-isolate at home. And meanwhile, those who are still overseas have been advised not to return at this time. And Malaysia reported 140 new cases and 6 deaths on Tuesday, bringing the tally to more than 2,700, including 43 fatalities. Nearly half of its infections are linked to a religious gathering held last month. For more, let's cross over now to Melissa Goh, who is joining me live from Kuala Lumpur. So, Mel, Malaysian government officials seem to believe that their stay-at-home measure is reaping some positive effects in restricting local transmissions. Tell us more about that.
Well, first of all, Julie, this is not a curfew. It's an order for Malaysians to stay at home as much as possible, only coming out when they need to pick up groceries or seek medical attention. Now, we are now in the second phase of this movement restriction order that's going to last till April 14th. The rules have been tightened somewhat a little. There's a strict one car, one person policy, which means no passengers will be allowed in the car with the drivers unless you're in the cab. Now, the police and the army personnel, some 60,000 of them, are now manning roadblocks across the country and making sure there is no non-essential travel or unnecessary moving around. Only those working in essential services like in banking, in logistics, in telcos and food industry with letters from employers that are allowed to be on the road. The rest are supposed to work from home. Now, it's unusual time in Malaysia. People are getting used to this, although some are still complaining. Many are cooperating. The police said compliance is now at 95% and they hope to ramp it up to 100%. Over 1,000 have been arrested so far for disobeying the order. About 160 of them have been charged in court, mostly paid a fine. Some were jailed between 1 to 6 months. The enforcement has been tightened this morning. Every single car is checked. And the statistics from the Health Ministry said that those in the age group of between 56 and 60 are most prone to contracting this COVID-19 because they are the heads of the families, they are those that are doing the errands, and the other groups are those between 26 and 30 years of age. Those are the students, he said, who return from overseas, the so-called imported cases that Malaysia can do without at this point in time, because every Malaysian returning from overseas will have to be taken straight to quarantine centres and be monitored for 14 days. There's no more home isolation or self-quarantine.
Extraordinary times and extraordinary measures, Mel. But the government has also issued an apology after getting some flack recently for advising women to wear makeup and not nag at their husbands during this time of lockdown. What prompted the Women's Ministry to issue such guidance? What's been the response so far?
Well, the Minister in charge of Women Affairs, Rina Harun, has since taken down these advice, from the website and from the social media platforms, reminding women when working from home during this period of time to groom themselves and put some makeup on and not be in their house coat the whole day. Now, her ministry also advises women not to be sarcastic and nag at their other halves when they screw up with the shopping list, because many Malaysian men, they are not used to doing groceries in Malaysia. They can't tell between, onion, a spring onion or shallot. The intention is to minimize conflict at home because families are spending a lot of time now at home, and some women groups, they were offended by these advice because they said it's sexist and insultful. Following the criticism, these messages were taken down. The minister seems to be getting a lot of flack these days in Malaysia, not just her ministry, other ministries as well. Malaysians seem to be losing patience, especially with politicians.